At one of America's most elite universities, in a modern lecture hall tucked away in a building renowned for its cutting-edge research, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation and a hint of rebellion. The advanced calculus class, long celebrated for its rigorous curriculum and brilliant minds, was about to become the stage for a confrontation that would forever alter its legacy. In this class, taught by the passionately opinionated Dr. Cassandra Monroe, the boundaries between abstract theory and real-world issues had begun to blur, and not always for the better. Before we dive deeper into this tale, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and if stories like this resonate with you, consider subscribing to our channel. Tomorrow, we have another special narrative waiting just for you. Dr. Monroe, a striking woman in her mid-40s known for her innovative, albeit controversial, blend of mathematics and social commentary, strode into the room with an intensity that both inspired and unnerved her students. With her vibrant auburn hair pinned back in a no-nonsense bun and her tailored blazer reflecting the confidence of a seasoned academic, she had earned a reputation not only as a formidable mathematician but also as a modern activist unafraid to interlace politics with pedagogy. Today, however, the board behind her was not filled with the intricate symbols of calculus but with a bold proclamation challenging the very priorities of academia. As students settled into their seats, murmurs of curiosity and unease spread throughout the lecture hall. Gone were the expected equations of multivariable calculus. Instead, a stark message loomed large in chalk on the board, redefining academic priorities, beyond equations, embracing reality. Some students exchanged glances, their expressions reflecting the internal tug-of-war between reverence for mathematical purity and the seductive lure of modern social justice narratives. At the back of the room sat a tall, reserved young man whose impeccable black suit and unflappable demeanor had become something of an urban legend on campus. Known simply as Barron Trump, he was a prodigy in every sense. His perfect test scores and his quiet, almost enigmatic, commitment to mathematics were the stuff of whispered awe. Unlike his peers, who often traded snarky comments or heated debates about his unapproachable aura, Barron maintained an air of gentle assurance. What few knew, however, was that behind those dark, penetrating eyes lay a brilliant mind, one that would soon force every soul in that room to reconsider their understanding of intellect, privilege, and true academic merit. Dr. Monroe launched into her lecture with her usual fervor, her voice rich with conviction as she extolled the virtues of merging academic rigor with pressing social issues. Mathematics, she declared, is not an isolated ivory tower pursuit. It is a lens through which we can view the inequities of our world. Today, we begin to understand that our abstract theories must give way to the tangible realities of social justice. Her words, intended to awaken the political consciousness of her students, instead sowed a seed of disquiet. Whispers and rustling papers filled the silence that followed her opening remarks. It was during this charged moment that Barron's hand gradually ascended from his seat, its slow, deliberate motion catching Dr. Monroe's eye. Perhaps it was the quiet defiance in his raised hand, or maybe the way his expression betrayed neither arrogance nor haste, but a steady curiosity, a quality that had made him both revered and misunderstood. With a subtle narrowing of her eyes, Dr. Monroe paused her diatribe on redefined curricula, her tone shifting from assertive to slightly condescending. "Yes, Mr. Trump," she said, her voice laced with a mixture of irritation and wry amusement, "do you have something to add to our discussion about privilege and the reordering of educational values?" A hush fell over the room. All eyes were on Barron as he slowly lowered his hand, the weight of expectation heavy in the charged silence. In that moment, it seemed as though time had suspended itself, every student and faculty member collectively holding their breath. Barron's voice, when he finally spoke, was measured and respectful, an embodiment of the calm logic that underpinned his genius. "Professor Monroe," he began, his tone soft yet unwavering, "I believe that calculus, in its elegant complexity, is not merely a subject to be used as a tool for social critique, but a fundamental language that bridges both theoretical and practical realms. Many of us enrolled in this advanced class to deepen our understanding of mathematics for its own sake. Would it not be more just to focus on the beauty and rigor of the discipline itself, rather than reducing its value to a commentary on privilege? A ripple of nods and murmurs of agreement stirred among his classmates. Those who had struggled silently in the dim light of self-doubt found solace in his words, while others, who had long suspected that there was more to learning than the professor's politically tinted lectures, felt a renewed spark of hope. Yet, Dr. Monroe's face hardened, her previous confidence now replaced by a simmering defiance of her own. "Mr. Trump," she retorted, emphasizing his surname as though it were a convenient shorthand for the very criticism she had tried so hard to level against the academic establishment, "perhaps you, of all people, might understand the nuanced ways in which privilege influences education. Not every student in this class has had the luxury of private tutors or the benefits of elite preparatory schools. How can you, with your advantages, truly grasp the struggles faced by your peers?" Before the tension could escalate further, the air in the room seemed to thicken with a sense of impending challenge. Instead of lashing out in defense, Barron allowed a gentle smile to play on his lips, a smile that conveyed not contempt but a genuine passion for the subject at hand. "You are absolutely correct, Professor. I have indeed been fortunate in many ways. And precisely because of that privilege, I feel a profound responsibility to uphold and advance high academic standards so that everyone may have the opportunity to succeed." A murmur of astonishment rippled through the classroom. It was one thing to acknowledge privilege in theory, but quite another to use that acknowledgement as a foundation for advocating excellence. Dr. Monroe's face flushed with a mixture of anger and reluctant admiration. "So you believe, then, that intellectual merit should stand as the sole criterion for academic achievement? And that, perhaps, our focus on social issues is an unfair distraction from the real pursuit of knowledge?" At that juncture, the professor's eyes shone with a challenging glint, and with a dismissive scoff she declared, "Very well, Mr. Trump. Let us settle this matter not with rhetoric, but with the language of mathematics itself." With that, she strode to the whiteboard, marker in hand, and began to scribble an equation that sent a collective shiver down the spines of even the most self-assured students. The equation was not an ordinary one, it was a labyrinthine integration problem, a synthesis of multivariable calculus and series expansion that required a depth of understanding far beyond the confines of the current syllabus. As the symbols and integrals sprawled across the board, even the most confident students felt their stomachs churn with anxiety. The problem was designed to be a gauntlet, a public test meant to embarrass a student and expose perceived deficiencies in academic rigor. A few whispered, "That's graduate-level stuff," while others exchanged doubtful glances. Yet Barron's expression remained as placid as ever. Stepping forward into the spotlight, he reached out and accepted the challenge with a quiet resolve that belied the enormity of the task ahead. "I'll be happy to give it a try," he said calmly, his voice a counterpoint of measured assurance against the rising tide of expectation. Dr. Monroe's smirk widened, a sign of overconfidence, perhaps, as she had chosen this problem specifically because it rested on techniques she had not yet covered in class. It was a deliberate test, a trap laid to humiliate a student who dared question her narrative. But as Barron took hold of the marker, his eyes scanning the intricate symbols with genuine interest, it became increasingly clear that his aim was not to belittle her, but to illuminate the inherent beauty of the discipline. As he began his solution, Barron turned to the class and announced, "Before I start, I've noticed that this problem actually permits multiple approaches. Would you prefer that I use the traditional method, or might you be interested in seeing a more efficient solution, one inspired by the original insights of historical mathematicians?" There was a pause, a pregnant moment of disbelief, as even Dr. Monroe's confident facade faltered. The reference to those pioneering works was not only unexpected but subtly undermined the professor's authority. Unable to hide her surprise, Dr. Monroe asked, "You're well versed in those original texts, aren't you?" "Indeed," Barron replied succinctly, his accent lending an unexpected hint of European refinement to his words. "The translations, though competent, never fully capture the elegance of the methodologies established centuries ago. Let us allow the mathematics to speak for itself." With that, the room plunged into a profound silence, every student and faculty member absorbed by the unfolding spectacle. Barron's hand moved across the board with practiced precision, each stroke deliberate and imbued with an artistry that belied the abstract nature of the subject. Step by step, he demonstrated not only the solution to the integration problem but also the underlying principles that connected centuries of mathematical thought, from the pioneering work of Euler to the innovations of modern calculus. Between each careful, well-annotated step, Barron paused, ensuring that even those who had once struggled with the subject could follow his logical progression. His commentary, interspersed with subtle humor and references to classic American films and pop culture, a quip about solving problems faster than a Netflix binge, brought a refreshing levity to the otherwise daunting exercise. Phones were discreetly raised, capturing every moment, as students from all corners of the room found themselves unexpectedly drawn into the narrative of numbers and logic. As the solution neared completion, Barron paused at a critical juncture. "At this point," he said, turning to face Dr. Monroe, "we have two paths forward. One is the traditional, exhaustive method that would require us to fill another entire board, and the other is a more elegant shortcut, drawing on those timeless insights I mentioned earlier. Which would you prefer to see, Professor?" His tone was neither mocking nor challenging, it was a genuine inquiry, a request for clarity that underscored his belief that mathematical truth should transcend personal biases. Dr. Monroe, caught off guard and momentarily rendered speechless, opened her mouth to respond when an unexpected voice emerged from the back of the classroom. A soft yet determined call interrupted the tension. "Could we possibly see both approaches?" asked a quiet student whose voice resonated with sincerity. Her name was Daisy Martinez, a diligent learner known for her thoughtful contributions, even if she rarely sought the spotlight. "It's helping me understand last week's chapter far better," she added, her tone underscored with earnest curiosity. Barron's warm smile in response to Daisy's question was like a beam of sunshine in the otherwise tense room. But before anyone could fully absorb the significance of that moment, the classroom door burst open with a decisive clatter. Enter Dean Preston, a figure both respected and feared across campus for his unwavering commitment to administrative order and his deep involvement in the current curriculum debates. "We need you for an emergency faculty meeting regarding the new curriculum changes," he announced, his tone authoritative yet tinged with regret at the untimely interruption. Dr. Monroe's eyes flickered with annoyance and resignation as she muttered, "It seems we'll have to postpone this demonstration." Yet before she could retreat, Barron spoke once more, his voice imbued with a quiet authority that demanded attention. "Professor, you challenged me to solve this problem in front of everyone. I accepted that challenge in good faith to underscore that academic integrity and rigorous thought should triumph over any personal agenda. The only question remaining is, will you honor your own challenge?" His words cut through the murmurs like a clarion call, sparking an electric tension that rippled through the room. A chorus of murmurs and whispers erupted as students began to realize they were witnessing something truly historic, a turning point in the way education and intellectual debate were conducted. The dean, his face a mixture of uncertainty and apprehension, appeared torn between asserting his authority and allowing this transformative moment to unfold organically. Dr. Monroe, for her part, stood frozen, caught between her pride and the unmistakable realization that her carefully curated narrative was unraveling before the very eyes of her pupils. In a gesture that was as unexpected as it was profound, Barron reached out and extended the marker back toward Dr. Monroe. "Perhaps you'd prefer to demonstrate your solution first," he suggested with a slight, almost conciliatory smile. "After all, you once asserted that family connections and personal background should not influence our commitment to knowledge. Surely, as the professor who set this challenge, you can lead by example." The silence that followed was palpable, a suspended moment of collective introspection where the weight of the professor's error and the promise of redemption hung in the balance. Dr. Monroe's hand trembled as she clutched the marker, her knuckles white with the realization that she had unwittingly trapped herself in a confrontation that transcended mere classroom politics. With the dean now a silent witness and the eyes of the entire class upon her, she struggled to find the strength to speak. She began, but her voice faltered as the enormity of her predicament sank in. Sensing an opportunity to defuse the situation with a spirit of collaboration rather than conflict, Barron offered in a tone as gentle as it was resolute, "We might find that solving this problem together could lead to a deeper understanding, not just of calculus, but of how we can bridge the divides that separate us. Sometimes, collaboration offers insights that solitary competition never could." His words, free of any hint of condescension or triumph, resonated deeply with many of the students, who had long yearned for an environment where learning was a shared journey rather than a battleground of egos. But pride, like a stubborn weed, would not let Dr. Monroe accept this olive branch so readily. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, abruptly tossing the marker aside. "This entire demonstration is nothing more than a privileged attempt by a student to undermine my authority." The dean, now clearly uncomfortable with the escalating conflict, attempted to intervene. "Let us all take a step back," he urged, his voice a blend of concern and caution. "We must maintain order." "Let us instead take a step forward," Barron countered firmly, reclaiming the marker with deliberate care. With an air of quiet determination, he turned back to the board and, in a display of mathematical virtuosity that left the room utterly speechless, proceeded to complete not one but both solutions, the traditional exhaustive method and the elegant shortcut drawn from timeless principles, in under 5 minutes. As he scrawled the final line of his work, a spontaneous eruption of applause swept through the lecture hall. Even Dean Preston's stern features softened into an expression of genuine amazement. Yet what followed would reshape the dynamic of not only the class but the entire academic department. Dr. Monroe's face, once flushed with anger, now drained of its color as her carefully constructed narrative crumbled before her eyes. Sensing the shift in power, Barron turned away from the board and faced both the professor and the dean, his voice carrying the quiet dignity of one who had seen the truth behind pretension. "The beauty of mathematics," he declared, "lies in its impartiality. It does not care for our politics, our backgrounds, or our biases. It is solely a pursuit of truth, a truth that should unite us rather than divide us." His hand gestured toward the completed equations. "These symbols and integrals tell us something far more significant than a mere academic problem. They remind us that when we allow our preconceptions to cloud our judgment, we risk losing the very essence of learning." Before anyone could digest the profundity of his words, another voice rang out from the back of the classroom, a voice that belonged to a student who rarely had the courage to speak. "Mr. Trump, while your mathematical abilities are undeniably impressive," said Jordan Rivers, his tone steady yet carrying an undercurrent of vulnerability, "we must also acknowledge that education is not simply about numbers on a board. For many of us, these lectures are a lifeline, a way to escape the constraints of our own challenging circumstances. I, for one, am here to learn calculus, not to be lectured on my supposed privileges." His words, sincere and unpretentious, struck a chord with the room, adding yet another layer to the unfolding drama. At that moment, Dean Preston cleared his throat, his voice heavy with the responsibility of the moment. "Mr. Trump, your performance today is a testament to your undeniable talent. But you must also understand that we are here to learn not only from equations but from each other's experiences." The dean's words, though measured, carried a weight of authority that even Dr. Monroe could no longer ignore. Barron, ever the calm center in a storm of emotions, responded with a soft, yet resolute tone, "Professor, my intent was never to challenge you out of disrespect, but rather to affirm that our shared passion for mathematics is what truly unites us. I have learned much from your technical lectures, and I would be honored to assist any student who wishes to delve deeper into the practical applications of these concepts." His words, imbued with a sincerity that cut through the lingering tension, seemed to offer a lifeline to an academic environment on the brink of collapse. For a long, suspended moment, the lecture hall remained silent. Then, with a heavy sigh that carried both regret and a newfound clarity, Dr. Monroe slowly retrieved the marker from the floor. Her voice, now softened and tinged with a humility that had not been present moments before, resonated with the truth of her realization. I have made a grave mistake," she admitted, her eyes meeting those of each student in the room. "For too long, I have allowed my own biases and preconceptions to cloud my judgment, a mistake that has cost me not only credibility, but the opportunity to truly educate." Her admission was not just a confession, it was a pivotal moment of transformation that rippled through the hearts of everyone present. Outside the lecture hall, unbeknownst to those within, a small crowd had begun to gather in the corridor. Students from other classes, having caught wind of the unfolding drama via live social media streams, clutched hastily scribbled signs emblazoned with slogans like "Teach Math, Not Politics" and "Merit Over Bias." The energy was palpable, a mixture of excitement, relief, and a yearning for an educational system that valued truth above all else. As the minutes turned into an hour, the energy in the room shifted dramatically. What had begun as a tense confrontation slowly evolved into a celebration of genuine learning and shared purpose. Dr. Monroe, now visibly humbled by the events of the day, redirected her focus to the subject she once loved for its inherent beauty. With Barron's assistance, she started hosting collaborative study sessions that bridged the gap between theoretical rigor and practical application, inviting all students to contribute their insights. The classroom, once a battleground of ideologies, was now transformed into a vibrant hub of intellectual exchange. In the weeks that followed, attendance in the advanced calculus class soared. Students who had previously felt intimidated by the subject or alienated by the politicization of learning now flocked to the lectures with renewed enthusiasm. Barron Trump, whose quiet leadership had catalyzed this transformation, remained ever modest in the background, still the quiet genius in his impeccably pressed suit, always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. One afternoon, as Barron was assisting a struggling student in grasping a particularly challenging concept, Dr. Monroe approached him quietly. "You know," she said softly, "you could have easily destroyed my career that day. Instead, you helped save it." She paused, the weight of her words hanging in the air before continuing, "Your father would be proud." There was a moment of reflective silence as Barron's eyes met hers, conveying a wisdom that belied his youth. "Professor," he replied gently, "my goal was never to tear anyone down, but to lift everyone up. True education is not a contest of egos, it is a collaborative journey toward understanding." The story of that fateful day spread like wildfire across campus. It wasn't merely a tale of a challenging calculus problem or a clash of ideologies, it became a legend, a reminder of the transformative power of humility, collaboration, and the relentless pursuit of truth. In a world where academic debates too often descended into bitter conflicts, the events in Dr. Monroe's class served as a beacon of hope, a clear statement that learning was, and should always be, an endeavor free from the shackles of personal bias. In time, the advanced calculus class came to be known not simply for its academic rigor, but for its unique culture, one where questions were welcomed, ideas were freely exchanged, and every student, regardless of background, was given the chance to rise above their circumstances. The once divisive discussions of privilege were gradually replaced by conversations about how mathematics could be applied to solve real-world problems, from optimizing public transportation systems to modeling the spread of ideas in an increasingly connected society. Alongside the newfound academic unity, subtle nods to American pop culture began to pepper the discourse, a humorous reference here to solving integrals faster than you can order a double cheeseburger at your favorite diner, or an aside about how the elegance of calculus could rival the artistry of a well-choreographed Broadway number. Dean Preston, who had initially worried that the incident might erupt into a full-blown administrative crisis, soon recognized that this moment of reckoning was, in fact, a turning point for the entire department. The dean's once rigid stance on curriculum reforms softened as he observed the organic transformation taking place in the classroom. What began as a challenge to academic authority had evolved into an opportunity for growth, an awakening that transcended partisan divides and united students and professors alike in a shared mission, to pursue knowledge with honesty, integrity, and a genuine spirit of inquiry. As the semester unfolded, the lessons learned that day continued to resonate in every corner of the university. Students who once felt marginalized by rigid educational structures began to excel, buoyed by the newfound sense of community. The collaborative study sessions led by Barron became a regular feature, drawing not only those who had previously struggled but also individuals eager to explore the real-world applications of theoretical mathematics. In a symbolic gesture of unity, the class even organized informal gatherings after lectures, occasional pizza parties and spirited debates about everything from quantum mechanics to classic American literature, where references to films like The Big Lebowski or TV shows like Breaking Bad punctuated their conversations with humor and cultural insight. Reflecting on the transformation, Dr. Monroe came to understand that her role as an educator was not to enforce a singular narrative, but to nurture curiosity and foster an environment where every student could thrive. In embracing the spirit of collaboration that Barron had so eloquently championed, she rediscovered her love for mathematics, a subject that, in its purest form, was a celebration of logic, creativity, and the boundless potential of the human mind. Years later, when alumni reminisced about their time at the university, many recalled that pivotal day as a defining moment, a day when the pursuit of truth triumphed over dogma, and when a quiet young man in a sharp suit reminded everyone that the greatest privilege of all is the opportunity to learn and to help others do the same. Barron Trump's legacy, etched into the very fabric of that institution, served as a perpetual reminder that education was not a battleground for divisive ideologies, but a sanctuary where brilliance could flourish irrespective of background. In the end, the calculus problem on the whiteboard was not merely a mathematical challenge, it was a metaphor for life itself. It demonstrated that, even when confronted with complexity and uncertainty, there exists an inherent beauty in the pursuit of understanding. And sometimes, the most profound lessons are learned not from textbooks or lectures, but from the courage to question, to collaborate, and ultimately, to grow together. If there is one truth that emerged from that day, it is this: true education transcends politics, pride, and prejudice. It is a journey, a complex, intricate, and sometimes messy journey, that demands both rigor and compassion. And in that journey, every equation solved, every theory debated, and every challenge met, no matter how daunting, serves as a stepping stone toward a more enlightened future. So, whether you are a student grappling with the challenges of advanced calculus or a lifelong learner seeking to understand the deeper currents of life, remember that every moment of struggle is also an opportunity, a chance to rise above, to bridge divides, and to embrace the universal language of truth. After all, in the grand equation of life, it is not our differences but our shared commitment to learning that ultimately defines us. And as the echoes of that fateful lecture continue to inspire new generations, one thing remains clear: when we let go of our biases and allow the purity of knowledge to guide us, we unlock a power far greater than any formula on a chalkboard, a power that can transform not only a classroom, but an entire community. If this story resonates with you, remember that education is not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about building bridges, sharing experiences, and, sometimes, solving a problem together, even if it means challenging those who would rather divide us. So here's to the curious minds, the brave hearts, and the passionate souls who remind us every day that the true measure of success is not in privilege or power, but in the relentless pursuit of understanding, and the joy of lifting each other up along the way.